I volunteer for a small organization that maintains hiking trails in the Colorado Rockies. The work is straightforward and mostly unglamorous. Clearing fallen trees, fixing trail markers, refreshing paint. And once a season, I drive out to the remote trailheads and collect the old sign-in logs. If you've never hiked in the US, I'll explain. At the entrance to many trails, there's a metal box on a post, and inside it is a logbook. You write down the date, your name, how many are in your group, where you're headed, and when you expect to be back. When you come back out, you sign the exit column. This isn't bureaucracy, it's safety. If someone never signs out, search and rescue knows who to look for and roughly where. The logbooks fill up, we swap them for new ones, and the old ones go to the organization's archive. Most of the time, nobody ever reads them. They just sit in boxes in the office basement for years. I was the first person in a long time who actually started going through them. I'd been given the task of digitizing old logs from one specific trail, Lowell Pass, a remote and unpopular route they were considering closing. The goal was to compile 30 years of visitor data to justify the decision. I sat in that basement for several weeks, evenings after my regular job, entering row after row into a spreadsheet. Date, name, group size, entry time, exit time. Thousands of records. Monotonous enough to make my eyes cross. Somewhere around the second week, I started noticing a name. Jacob Renner. It appeared every year, always on the same date, October 4th. Always alone, group size 1. Always the same trail, Lowell Pass. The handwriting shifted slightly over the years, but the name was the same, written with the same deliberate neatness, and not a single entry had anything in the exit column. The exit field, blank, every year, 31 years in a row. Jacob Renner signed in on October 4th and never signed out. Not once. At first, I figured it was a quirk. Some people just don't bother with the exit signature. They see it as a formality. Forgetting 30 times is unlikely, but possible. I entered it into the spreadsheet and moved on. But it wouldn't leave me alone. So one evening, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I pulled up the county search and rescue archive. We have access for coordination purposes. I typed in the name, Jacob Renner. One result. Jacob Renner, 34 years old, disappeared on the Lowell Pass Trail on October 4th. Went in alone, never came back. An extensive search ran for 2 weeks. No body was found. The case was closed as a presumed death in the mountains. This happened 31 years ago, 1 year before the first entry in the oldest logbook I had in my hands. I reread the dates 3 times. Jacob Renner disappeared in October, and the following October, and every October after that, someone by the name of Jacob Renner signed into the Lowell Pass trailhead on the same date and never signed back out. I didn't tell anyone. What would I have said? That a dead man had been signing logbooks for 30 years? They would have pulled me from the project and told me to take a vacation, but I couldn't leave it alone. For the next few nights, I barely slept. I lay there going over those entries in my head. I went back to the archive and checked again, line by line, whether I'd missed an exit signature in even 1 year. I hadn't. 31 sign-in entries, 0 sign-outs, every single one on October 4th, with that precise, methodical consistency that was the most unsettling part. People don't do that by accident. Someone was showing up deliberately, year after year, on one specific date, at one specific box. I started looking for family. Maybe Jacob Renner had left behind a brother, a son, a wife, someone who drove out every year on the anniversary and wrote the name down as a way of remembering. That would be sad, touching, but at least human. I found an old obituary. Jacob Brenner had no children. His wife died 2 years after his disappearance. His parents were long gone. There was no one left who could have been making the annual trip and signing for him. And then I did something. October 4th was a week away. I decided to drive out to Lowell Pass that day. Not to hike, just to be at the trailhead, at the box, and watch. To confirm it was someone's long-running ritual. A friend, a distant relative, someone who'd known Renner, coming out every year on the anniversary to write his name. Sad, but human. The only explanation I could actually accept. That morning, I arrived at the empty parking lot at 7 a.m. October, high in the mountains, cold, fog rolling off the slopes. No cars but mine. The box with the fresh logbook, I'd installed it myself 2 weeks earlier, stood on its post at the trailhead. I opened the logbook, empty. A few entries from early in the season, then clean pages. No Jacob Brenner. Not yet. I got in my car where I could see the entrance and waited. Drank coffee from a thermos. Watched the fog thicken and thin. An hour, 2 hours. Nobody. Not a single person on the road in either direction. Around noon, I decided it had all been a coincidence in the old records, and I got ready to leave. But before I went, I walked back to the box one last time just to check the logbook. I opened it to the last filled page. Below the entries I'd made that morning was a new line. Fresh, the ink hadn't fully dried yet. I ran my finger across it and it smeared slightly. October 4th, Jacob Renner, Group 1. Route, Lowell Pass. Expected return time. The exit column was blank. I stood at that box alone in the middle of an empty parking lot. For 2 hours, I hadn't seen a single car, a single person. Nobody had walked past me going in or coming out. Fog, silence, me in the box. And in that time, someone had walked up, opened the logbook, and signed in the same careful handwriting as 30 years running. I looked at the trail. It went uphill and disappeared into the fog 20 meters in. And there, at the edge where the trail dissolved into white, I saw a figure. A man, standing with his back to me, facing the mountain, wearing outdated hiking gear, the kind people wore 30 years ago. He wasn't moving. He just stood at the start of the trail like he was working up the nerve to go. I called out. My voice came out flat and muffled in the fog. The figure didn't turn, but slowly, very slowly, it raised one hand, not a wave, just raised it, pointing forward up the trail, as if to say, let's go. Up there, I didn't go. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove away without looking back until the trailhead was around the bend and gone. That evening, I handed in all the digitized logs and asked to be taken off the Lowell Pass project. I didn't explain why. A few months later, the trail was officially closed. The visitor data showed almost no one used it, and it wasn't cost-effective to maintain. The logbook box was scheduled to be removed in the spring. I'm still a volunteer, but I don't go out to Lowell Pass anymore. There's one thing I did before turning in that last logbook. I photographed the page, the one with the entry that had appeared while I sat 20 meters away watching the entrance. My only proof that I hadn't invented any of this. The photo is still on my phone. Last week I opened it again. I don't know why. Same entry. October 4th, Jacob Renner, Group 1, exit column blank. Except now there was one more line beneath it. A line that wasn't in the photograph when I took it. I would swear to that. I've looked at that image dozens of times. Same handwriting. Fresh. My name. This year's date. October 4th, exit column blank. I wasn't there this year. I haven't been near that box since last fall when everything happened. October 4th is 3 days away, and I still haven't decided which is more terrifying, to drive out there and try to cross out my entry before it's too late, or to accept that no one has ever had anything in that exit column, and none of them ever will. I've been a tow truck driver for 12 years. I work in a rural county in West Texas, where the distances are vast and the population isn't. My territory covers a stretch of interstate and a few county roads that run through the desert for hundreds of miles without a single town. At night, when someone breaks down or goes off the road, they call me. It's a lonely job, but I'm used to it. Mostly it's routine. Flat tires, overheated engines, drunk drivers stuck in the sand. A call or two per shift, I drive out, hook up, haul. The desert at night is empty, dark, and quiet. And after 12 years, I know every mile of my territory like my own backyard. There's one place I need to tell you about. Mile marker 43 on County Road 118. It's a desolate stretch. Straight as a ruler through a salt flat, no gas station, no building, no turnoff for miles in either direction. At night, there's nothing out there but your headlights and the numbered posts appearing one by one. The 43 post looks just like all the others, except that every year, a car disappears near it. I didn't notice it right away. You notice things like that over years. But when you drive the same roads for 12 years, the patterns start to surface on their own. About once a year, I get called out to an abandoned vehicle near mile 43 on 118. Always the same setup. A car pulled off to the shoulder, neat, like the driver had stopped on purpose. Engine running, headlights on, doors unlocked. Inside, the driver's things: phone, wallet, keys still in the ignition, sometimes a half-finished coffee in the cup holder, still warm. No driver, no body nearby, no tracks leading out into the desert. No note, no blood, nothing. The person had simply ceased to exist behind the wheel, leaving the car idling in the middle of nowhere. In 12 years, there have been 8 of them. 8 cars, 8 missing drivers, all at the same location. Police open a case each time, search each time, find nothing each time. Different people, different vehicles, different state plates. The only thing in common, mile 43. I hauled those cars to the impound lot and then tried not to think about it. Not my business. I hook up and haul, let somebody else investigate. But one thing stuck in my head, and that's really where it all started. The calls about these vehicles always came from the same number. We have a small dispatch operation. A call about a broken down car usually comes from the driver themselves or from someone who passed by and saw it. Dispatch relays the number and location to me. And I noticed that every single call about mile 43 had the same incoming number logged in the system. The same one, all 8 times, across years. I asked the dispatcher to look it up. Just curiosity. She typed for a while, then gave me a strange look. The number doesn't exist. Not disconnected, not unavailable. It doesn't exist in any network. The number has never been registered with any carrier. But calls had come from it. 8 times over 12 years, always arriving a few minutes before I found the next abandoned car. Someone from a non-existent number was reporting the vehicle before anyone could have possibly seen it. I didn't say anything. What would you say? Last month I got called out to 43 again. The call came in at 2:40 a.m. Dispatch relayed the coordinates, then hesitated for just a second before giving me the incoming number. I already knew what it would be. Same one. The one that doesn't exist. I drove out. 40 minutes on an empty road, nothing but headlights and mile markers. 41, 42, 43. The car was on the shoulder, exactly like always. A sedan pulled off neatly, engine running, headlights on, driver's door slightly ajar. I stopped behind it, threw on my flashers, and got out. The desert around me was completely black and still. That particular silence of a salt flat where you can't even hear wind. I walked up to the car. Same as always. Phone on the seat, keys in the ignition, coffee in the cup holder. I touched the cup. Warm. The driver had been here just a few minutes ago. And then I did something I hadn't done in all 8 calls before. I called out. Into the dark, into the desert. Just to hear my own voice. And from the darkness, from behind the car, from the direction of the salt flat, something answered. Yes, I'm here. The voice was calm, even, male. It came from somewhere close, in the darkness beyond the reach of my headlights, out where there was nothing but flat white salt flats for miles. I froze. The beam of my flashlight shook. I aimed it toward the sound. Nothing. Flat white salt to the horizon, no cover, no person. But the voice had come from there, 10, maybe 15 meters out. Help me, the voice said in that same even tone. I'm here. Come over. And here's what saved me. 12 years on these roads. I've pulled hundreds of people out of bad situations. I know what a person sounds like when they genuinely need help. Nobody sounds the way that voice sounded. There was no fear in it, no pain, nothing but a calm, patient invitation. Come over. I didn't go. I backed toward the tow truck without taking my flashlight off the spot the voice was coming from. And the voice kept calling. It changed. One moment it was male, then suddenly female. Then it shifted to a child's. Like whatever was sitting out there in the dark was flipping through voices like index cards, looking for the one I'd respond to. It called me sir. It said it was cold. It said it was hurt and couldn't get up. All in that same steady, unhurried tone. I got in the cab, locked the doors, and drove. Didn't hook up the sedan. Just left it there with the engine running and put 40 miles between me and that place without once checking the mirrors. In the morning, the police drove out to 43. The sedan was still there. Engine dead by then. It had run out of fuel. The driver was never found. Another missing persons case, another empty result. I quit a week later. Said I was burned out on night shifts. That part's even true. But there's one thing I still can't explain, and it's the reason I don't sleep. When I got back that night, and the dispatcher asked why I hadn't brought the car in, I told her everything. The voice. How it kept telling me to come closer. She went pale and pulled up the call log to show me that non-existent number one more time. The 240 call was there. Same number. But there was a second one I hadn't seen. A call that came in while I was out at the scene. At 3:10 a.m., while I was standing next to that car listening to a voice in the dark. The same non-existent number had called dispatch again. The call lasted 2 minutes. The dispatcher had stepped away and didn't pick up, so it went to voicemail. We listened to the recording together. 2 minutes of my own voice. Calm, even. Patient. Calling out into the darkness. Anyone out there? Help me. I'm here. Come over. The exact words the darkness had used to call to me. Except I hadn't called anyone. I had a flashlight in my hand, not a phone. And I still don't know which one of us was standing next to the car, and which one was calling from the dark. I joined a volunteer search and rescue team about 5 years ago, after my own nephew got lost in the mountains and was found alive thanks to volunteers just like these. I wanted to give something back. I went through the training, got my gear, and since then I've been called out a few times a year to search for people who've gotten lost in the Appalachians in the eastern part of the state. The work is harder than people imagine. It's not an adventure. It's long hours walking in a line 10 meters from the person next to you, watching the ground, calling out a name, listening. Most of the time you find the person alive. They got turned around, got scared, ran out of battery. Sometimes you find a body, and sometimes you find nothing, and that's the worst. Because you drive home knowing someone is still out there and someone is waiting for them. 5 years in, I've gotten used to most of it. But there's one call I'll never forget. It was last fall. A hiker was missing. A man in his 30s who'd gone out on a day trail in a remote section of the forest and hadn't come back. Standard call. We assembled at dawn, split into groups, got our sectors. My sector was far from the main trail. A steep wooded slope above an old ravine, not somewhere a day hiker would likely wander. But you check everything. We walked in a line for several hours. Dense old forest, full of fog that hadn't lifted even by midday. We called the missing man's name. We listened. Nothing but water dripping from branches and the sound of our own footsteps. Then, somewhere closer to the bottom of the ravine, one of our team spotted something below, between the trees. We went down. There was a man sitting there. He was sitting at the base of a tree, back against the trunk, arms around his knees, staring into the fog. Alive. We moved toward him immediately. But something was wrong, and I felt it before I understood what. The clothing. He was wearing hiking gear, but not modern gear. An old cut jacket, boots of a style that hasn't been made in decades, a canvas pack with a metal external frame. The kind people carried a generation ago. Everything on him was intact, clean, almost new-looking. Not like someone who'd been sitting in the forest for 20 years. Like someone who'd just left the house, just a very long time ago. We came close. He looked up at us, and what was in his eyes wasn't the fear of a lost hiker. It was something else, confusion, like he didn't understand where we had come from. Our team's medic crouched beside him, spoke calmly, asked his name, asked if he was hurt. The man answered. Voice normal, clear. He gave a name, said he'd gotten lost the previous evening, stepped off the trail into the fog and couldn't find his way back. So he decided to wait it out until dawn. He asked if we were with search and rescue and thanked us for getting there so quickly. The medic gently asked what today's date was. The man gave a date. 22 years ago. We looked at each other. The medic, very carefully, told him the actual year. The man laughed. Thought it was a joke at first. Then he saw our faces. He looked at our gear, the modern radios, the jackets, the GPS units. He saw the phone someone on our team was holding, and the smile left his face. He said it wasn't possible, that he'd set out on the trail yesterday morning, that his wife was expecting him home that evening. He gave her name, gave the address, gave the town. He was completely calm, composed, lucid. It was just that for him, not 22 years had passed. One night had. Our team leader got on the radio and gave the name to base. A long pause. Then base came back with a different tone of voice. A person by that name had existed, had gone missing in this forest 22 years ago on this same trail. A major search had turned up nothing. The case was closed. The wife he'd named was still alive. But she was no longer young. She had buried him in her memory 2 decades ago and moved to another city. And sitting in front of us was a 30-year-old man in clothes from 22 years ago who hadn't aged a single day. We didn't know what to do. Protocol said, provide assistance and bring him out to base. The medic checked him over. Pulse, blood pressure, pupils, all normal. A healthy person. We helped him to his feet and started leading him up the slope toward the trail. And on the way up, he started to change. Not outwardly, in his behavior. At first he walked and talked, asked us things. Who was president now? What had changed? Kept not believing us, kept asking again. But the higher we climbed, the closer we got to the trail, to other people, to the present world. The quieter he became. The more often he stopped. The more he looked back, down into the fog of the ravine we'd brought him out of. Halfway up, he stopped completely and said something strange. He said he didn't remember spending the night under that tree. That the last thing he remembered clearly was stepping off the trail into the fog the previous morning. And then, us. Like there was nothing between those two moments. No night, no cold, no fear. Just a gap. And that now, as we led him uphill, that gap seemed to be calling him back down. That down there, where we'd found him, he had felt peaceful, and that he wasn't sure he wanted to come out. The medic took his hand and said gently that everything would be okay, that we'd get him out, that we'd find his wife. He nodded, but he wasn't looking at us. He was looking down into the ravine. We brought him out to the trail. A vehicle was waiting, along with base staff and coordinators. We handed him off and went back. Our sector wasn't fully cleared yet. The work wasn't done. I looked back once. He was standing by the vehicle, surrounded by people, in his old clothes, looking out of place in the present world like something from a museum. He was looking at me, and I would swear that what was on his face wasn't relief. It was sorrow. We finished clearing the sector and got back to base that evening. He wasn't there. The coordinator said the man had asked to use the bathroom. There was a portable unit at the edge of the lot, separate from the main building. They let him go on his own. He was an adult, clear-minded. He went in and didn't come out. When they opened it 10 minutes later, it was empty. No window, no other exit. Just an empty unit at the edge of the woods. They searched for him again. For him, this time. A second search in 22 years, with the same result. Nothing. And the missing hiker we'd actually been called out for that day. He turned up alive the following morning, miles away. He'd gotten turned around, waited out the night, walked out on his own. He was fine. A year has gone by. I'm still on the team, still going out on searches. But now I know something I didn't before, and it makes every call different. Sometimes we find someone other than the person we're looking for. Sometimes the forest gives back not whoever got lost yesterday, but whoever got lost a long time ago. And I'm no longer sure that everyone we bring back up should be brought back up, because that man tried to tell me as much himself on the way up the slope, that someone down there is at peace, and the forest isn't holding them by force. It just waits for them to stop wanting to leave. And the worst part is this. That day, as we let him out, he kept looking down into the ravine we'd pulled him from. Only once did he look up toward the trail we were heading for. And when he looked up, he wasn't looking at the trail. He was looking at me, like he already knew that one day it would be my turn to sit under that tree in the fog and wait for someone to come down